We are here this afternoon at the Fresno Art Museum talking to Executive Director and Chief Curator Michelle Ellis-Pracy, and we are excited to take a tour of a show that is going to be here for a couple more months. It's called Nathan Oliveira, Rare Works from the Private Collections of His Children. And this is a show that you'll never be able to see again. And so thank you for having us,
My
Michelle.
pleasure. I'm so proud to share this exhibition.
This was really a special one for you.
It was, because I knew of Nathan as early as the late 70s, early 80s when I worked at the Oakland Museum. And at that point, Bay Area figurative movement was still fresh. I mean, it was 20 years old, 30 years old. Now it's much older and longer ago. But he was such a giant in that movement that to me this is coming full circle in lots of ways to honor him this way.
This is Nathan. Mm-hmm. Tell us about this photo. How old is he in this?
He's in his probably mid-30s in this photo, and his children were very, very adamant that this be in the exhibition. So what I did for this particular gallery, this show has two galleries devoted to it, but this gallery has Nathan in it, and the second gallery has a quote of his. So in each gallery, he has a physical presence and an intellectual presence, emotional presence beyond the paintings.
So when you talk about the figurative part of this movement, it actually is what it sounds like, right? There are figures, or you can at least see a hint
right.
of something.
The human figure is the nut, the human figure. And Joan Brown, most of her work at that time were self-portraits. So, whereas Nathan's pieces, as you look at the variety of figures in this show, whether it's sculpture or painting, no figure is like another, except for the final paintings. I have two from 2010, one in this gallery and then the one you enter with. I felt it was emotionally interesting to start the show with one of his last paintings, as opposed to a super early work.
So maybe we could walk over and just look at some of these figurative
Absolutely.
paintings.
So what I've done is hung each gallery in chronological order. And most people, whether they know they're doing it or not, work a gallery left to right. So they walk in, they start here. It's just automatic. So I always put my curatorial statement at the beginning. People can choose to read it or not, but it's there, separate from the paintings themselves. So we start out with the painting from the 60s. And this is interesting because it almost looks like a collage, but it's not. It's just painted in layers. So it looks like that. This is from 1963. So every decade between 63 and 2010 is represented in these two galleries. And each painting, one to the next, is completely different from the other. So while he has an atmospheric sense to his work, you cannot put him in a niche. You will recognize a Nathan Oliveira. If once you visited this show, or if you're already familiar with his work, you know what you're looking at when you see one. But I love this show because there is so much variety here. Color, surface, composition, scale. It really shows you how capable he was. He's a giant, you know, in the art world, in my opinion.
And now he spent his entire life in the Bay Area, right? Or most of it?
Yes, he was raised in Oakland as a child. He's from Portuguese parents. And when you see the drawings of his childhood, they're of pastoral places, you know, farms and birds and that sort of thing. He went to the California College of Arts and Crafts, and he was the only Bay Area figurative artist who had a tenured position as a teacher. So he taught at Stanford University, and he retired from Stanford. And he raised his children on the campus. His studio was there, the one both supplied by the university and that he used for his own purposes. So he was the only one that really had that continuity. And I think he did that because, number one, he loved teaching, and number two, there was a security there, you know, that he really wanted to have for his family.
So some of these are very obviously figures.
Right.
Some of them, though, you also have to look pretty closely. Now, this one I had to look at for a while before I kind of see a figure
Exactly.
there. This one, I'm not sure
It's a
if
wing.
I found that. It's a wing.
It's a
Okay.
wing. And the figure, this is just a face in profile.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of that, like Modigliani.
Yes, or a mask.
Mask.
From the
yeah,
side.
yeah.
He loved antiquities. He loved pre-Columbian work. He loved birds, and I'll talk about that more in the second gallery. But he has a meditation center devoted to some of his wings on the Stanford campus, and it's called Windhover. And you need to make an appointment to go, but it's the most gorgeous building, and in it are paintings just of bird wings in different, and they're huge. I mean, the one at the back of Windhover is the size of that wall, and that's, I think it's a diptych. It's a 2-panel painting, but it's just if you can go visit there, it's crucial that you go see
That's
it.
a great travel tip, too.
It's a great
isn't it?
travel tip. Yeah, if you're in Palo Alto, contact the campus and see if you can get in it. You have to use your student ID to get in. It's for students and faculty as a place to just get away from the hustle and bustle, but other people go in. Joe took me through. It was such a treat.
Are any of these people who we can identify?
No, they're just
people,
symbolic. Yeah,
symbolic.
yeah, and I love the fact that I was able to pull pieces with a variety of color, so many different types of compositions. One of my favorites is this one here, and you'll notice that the surfaces, when you come to see the show in person, it's really important to get up and look at the surfaces of the paintings because they're delicious. They're just delicious. And in this particular case, the nose had been built up with a great deal of paint, and it cracked and broke off. And so Joe had to help his dad rebuild this piece. And he told me at the meeting on Saturday that if I look here, there was also damage here, and his dad just scraped it off and just left it. He didn't rebuild that section, but they had to rebuild the nose on this piece. But this blue is just so scrumptious. It's scrumptious.
It is.
Yeah.
I love the way you call it delicious. It is like almost an edible
Exactly,
type of
for your
experience.
eyes,
And it's a great tip as well to remind people to look
Absolutely.
at the surface of the painting.
It's very
And that's what
important.
makes it different than just looking at it on a screen
Right.
or in a book, is
Right.
you get to see that.
Yeah, and what's
Texture.
interesting is until the 2010 paintings, he did probably 10 of these and worked on them all at once in his studio, which is the year he passed away. And Joe said for the first time he washed the canvas with color, whereas here he's painting on the canvas. Every single painting has brush strokes and thickness and thinness and crackler now over time, which worries me, but Joe says it's okay. There's a lot of crackler on this one. You can see it, but he says they're fine. I check them every day. But this blue is so beautiful too. From a distance, you don't see the depth of the layering of this blue, and then all of a sudden you see the brighter blue on the edges, and he just kept working it. And the nose is just this single little brush stroke.
Yeah. No, it really is interesting because it took me about 15 seconds for it to kind of
Yeah, so you could see it.
and to register.
Yeah.
But that adds kind of a sense of discovery
Exactly.
to it.
Yeah, these are not just you walk on by.
But-
Each one can remind you of something. This gallery I devoted to another curatorial statement which talked more about the Bay Area figurative movement and less about how the show came about, which is what my first curatorial statement talks about. But this gallery has a lot of poignancy to me. Joe pulled out painting or drawings that his father had done as early as 5 years old. And this is a bird. And Nathan loved birds his entire life and painted birds. Behind their house on the campus were these hills. They were right on the edge of any development. So right behind their house was a road and then these hills. And there are these kestrels that fly and they float there for hours without having to move their wings. They just ride the wind currents. And so I loved it that as early as 5 he had done this drawing and that it had been saved. His parents were the ones to have saved it, and then he saved it, and then his children have saved it.
Now this must touch a nerve with parents who walk in and
Exactly.
say, hey, my 5-year-old has drawn something that looks like that.
Exactly.
So you never know.
You never know. So save some things. And then this was a extremely capable drawing he did, and he was 7 or 8 with the perspective and the detail. I mean, that's a very advanced drawing for a little kid.
Yes.
Yeah. And Mickey Mouse, and this was virtually ripped through the middle, and we were given permission to repair it. We framed all of these, so Joe would pull these out from, flat files in his studio office space.
So there's his son Joe.
Son Joe.
And who were his other?
Lisa Lamore lives in Fresno. And the idea for this show came when I went to her house for a dinner party. And I walked in, and I don't know what I expected, but I've stripped her house. Her house is in these 2 galleries. Joe has enough, between...
Even one from her bathroom, right?
Exactly. This one, which is one of my favorite pieces, hangs above the John in one of her bathrooms. And it's this great little collage with a matchbook. And on the side is one of those plastic tags that you would push the numbers or the letters, and it misspells his name. But I just love this. You're never going to see this again, because it hangs in Lisa's bathroom. And most curators are not going to go poking around and finding such things. So yes, so Lisa and Joe, the night of the dinner party, which was probably 2017 or 18, I immediately said, would you lend to an exhibition from works that you hold yourselves? Because I like to show things. One of my modus operandi as a curator is to show things that have never been seen before. Whatever lengths I have to go to do that, I will. And they both said yes.
You never had the opportunity to meet him in
I
person.
never met Nathan.
But you have spent like a lot of
my life
time with him for this exhibition.
Exactly.
What have you learned about him, or what kind of person was he, do you think?
I think he finally came to terms. He was going to be a bookbinder initially, and he went to a museum, and I don't remember where it was, but back east, and saw Rembrandt's self-portrait. And he saw that painting, which is an incredible painting, and he knew he would be a painter. So I think that as you live in this particular gallery, you see the finesse, the talent he had for translating life 3-dimensionally onto 2-dimensional surfaces. Like, I love this case. These are actual paintbrushes from his studio. And Joe described how he would wipe his brushes. He'd take a paint. He loved peanuts. He ate nuts all the time. So a lot of these cans are nut cans. And he would just use them to scrape his brushes and just let them fill up. And in this case, after he passed, they just dried. These are paint tubes he used. That's one of his palettes. But these are quick, still life studies, and then a self-portrait. And he put on to whatever medium he was working in, whether it was bronze and lost wax, or paint on paper or canvas, or pulling a lithography stone. He put his life there. And it's a beautiful appreciation. I mean, a lot of people wonder why he has these nebulous figures that emerge out of nebulous backgrounds, and they think he's very mysterious. I don't see that. I don't see the mystery in it. I just see that that's what he wanted to say to us. And
there's a gentleness to his work, but I can also sense like there was a firmness in terms of his principles.
He was very capable and comfortable in being a painter.
He was probably a great teacher.
I'm sure he was a great teacher. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the sculptures, because that was something that came very late.
Yes. He was very, very devoted to his wife, Mona, and they were married, I believe, 57 years. And she passed away from cancer, and he quit painting towards the end of her life to take care of her full time. So there was a hiatus that's acknowledged. But upon her death in 2007, I think she died 2005 or 2007, he just quit. He just couldn't be an artist right then and there. So Joe was very concerned, and he thought, well, what if he did something completely opposite of what he's always done? So he took him some wax, and then he suggested to his dad that he try and sculpt for something completely different, see if it would get him out of this malaise. And something like this would take a wire armature, so he would build the figure with just like hanger wire and get the movement he wanted. And then on top of that, you mush the softened wax. So you'll see his thumbprints and how he would mold that wax in the bronze. And then it would be put in a chalice, bronze poured in, the wax melts, and the bronze takes on all the factors of the wax manipulation. And he ended up really loving them. And this hair up figure, there's a big one from Lisa's house in the other gallery. But Lisa went to visit him probably a year or so after her mother died. And she walked in and there were all these bronzes inhabiting his studio. And she was just like burst into tears over it, because they were so magnificent and powerful. And it's as though he brought the figure from his paintings out into the three-dimensional world.
And it must have been gratifying to her that he was still creating.
Exactly.
That he was able to.
And then he went back to painting.
And then he went back to painting.
Yeah, they helped him overcome something really tragic and that could have stopped him from ever working again. And yet because of their encouragement, he found a way to keep on going.
And it's just another reminder of the power of art.
Exactly.
How it can shape people's lives, get them through various challenges.
I mean, how many of us go to museums when we are sad about something, or we have something that's a crisis, and we can just go here and the art makes us better. Whether you're intellectually taking it apart or just being with it, it really does heal.
So I want to circle back to the beginning. Before we do, is there anything we've missed or that
No, I
want to
think
talk about?
these are the final paintings he ever painted. And Joe has these, so I was really honored that he lent them. And I end this gallery with these little portraits that are very quick. Some are in profile, some are three-quarter view. The one in the middle is looking at you right on. But he finished painting, I think, one of the red paintings, had a dinner party, and went to bed. And he had Rottweilers all of his life, and something I don't have in here, which I was loaned, but I just couldn't fit it in. I kept trying to find a place for it, but it's a collage he did, an assemblage with his dog's collar and a portrait of his dog. And that's the one thing I'm missing. But his Rottweiler was guarding him when they found him the next morning. So there are things some of these paintings have been seen before in group shows, but never altogether like this.
Well, it must have been so fulfilling for you to work on this and see it come together.
Yeah.
And give people the opportunity to see his work and kind of remember him and kind of give him that.
He needs to be remembered.
Yeah.
And that's what Joe and Lisa said. They were so concerned that he would fade because he wasn't being given the same exposure in the major institutions in the Bay Area that his colleagues were. And I'm shocked. I'm still shocked that nobody did this. And for a gallery to do it, there's always a retail undercurrent. That there's a commercial. Oh, he's passed away. His pieces are going to be more expensive. So a museum doesn't do that. A museum is a place that honors somebody. And so I'm so proud to have done this for that reason too.
Well, let's take a look one more time at this last painting. The first time I saw it, I just stood and stared for a while.
Yeah.
Do you see people doing that?
Yes, and lighting it was really crucial because we didn't want it to be too bright because it has that molten effect. You almost feel like it's red, hot red metal or something back there, that you're looking at, not paint on canvas. But Joe said he would start at the top, and he's a short guy. It's just like he had to get on a ladder to do these huge paintings, and he would just let this thin red veil of paint fall from the top of the canvas down. And when it stopped, then he would come in and start brushing it further in. And I love that this edge is orange.
Yeah.
And that he brings the orange in here so that you can tell this figure is standing on something. You know, it anchors the painting with this delicate orange foot. And then he uses that orange again to just delicately highlight the posture so you could tell she's at an angle, she's not forward. But he has runners, he has all different configurations of the figure within these 12 paintings, or 8 or 10 paintings he did at the end.
And to me, it really made me think of like the Greek underworld, you know, the kind of the stories
Atlantis.
of passing on, or I think it's the color, but also the fact that it looks sort of like a pedestal. And,
Right.
But I found it very moving, and the fact that this was the last,
Yeah, and I love this too. I just saw this, but this looks like a wing.
Yes.
You know, on the back of her. And the fact that he did 10 like this, 8 or 10 like this, is really interesting.
So what do you think the orange, why is the orange
It's almost like a doorway to me. So I'm allowed to enter from here, and maybe I'm coming this way behind her, but it's a different space. That little bit of orange is a different space, and this is her space.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much
Thank you,
for this
Donald.
tour. We need to tell people how long does the show run, and how can they come see it?
It's up through the end of June. I believe we're having a closing reception, which we don't do often, but that'll be June 28th. Check our website. Under exhibitions, it has all the dates. I'm working on the next season now, so it's like all jumbled up. But we're having a closing reception, and our hours are Thursday and Friday, noon to 5, and Saturday and Sunday, 10 to 5.
And plan a couple hours, you know, to be able to come down and really enjoy and just go through leisurely. And it's amazing how his work kind of seeps into you.
It does.
Every time I've come back to see it, I've like grown in appreciation. So
Yeah, and the people that came from the Palo Alto Art Center on Saturday, they are all very familiar with Nathan because Joe did a show there for him, and they did a major bronze exhibition for him years ago. So they came knowing all about Nathan Oliveira, and they were still just blown away by the variety, the scale, and the time that's covered in both of these galleries. It meant a lot to them, so it'll mean a lot to anybody who comes
that's right.
to see
Well,
it.
it's great, and I think people
Thank you,
will
Donald,
really
for the time
enjoy it.
today.